Thank you, Brian, and thank you for allowing me to be part of your educational event today. Of course, my topic is annuities, what everybody should know about annuities, but maybe just didn't think to ask. And if you think about annuities, and especially the importance of annuities today, you really need to go back in time a little bit to understand just why they're as important today as they are. So travel with me, if you will, back to, let's say, mid-1970s. In mid-1970s, the federal government recognized that the average person, the average American, just is not saving enough for retirement. So they enacted a law. And this law incented individuals to save more for retirement, and the Individual Retirement Arrangement, or IRA, was born. A couple of years later, there was a loophole that was identified within the IRS tax code that allowed employers to pay employees into an account that they could save for their retirement going forward. Now, both of these accounts, and then that second one, of course, was the 401k. So we have the IRA, Individual Retirement Arrangement, and the 401k, which is a profit sharing plan. Both of these plans allowed you to contribute to the plan and contribute with pre-tax dollars. In other words, you wouldn't have to pay taxes on the dollars you earned in the year that you contributed to these plans, and that money would sit in those plans, and at some point in the future, it would grow. At some point in the future, you would take it out and you would pay tax on it at that point at the then tax rate. Great tool, great strategy to help people start saving for retirement. More and more employees decided that they wanted these 401ks and these IRAs. And so companies started utilizing 401ks and offering 401ks and actually helping fund and match some of the contributions. And so beginning in the 1980s, really when things started taking off, there have been a multitude of insurance agents and financial advisors and registered representatives and stockbrokers and bank employees, all kinds of individuals who would gladly help these employees or these individuals, these retirement savers, determine one, how much to save, and two, where to invest it. But in reality, how much to save and where to invest it, that's just half the story. You see, prior to these retirement accounts being available, most employers, large employers, had pension plans. And pension plans were very simple. You work for a company for so many years, and if you work for them for so many years, they give you an income for life when you leave. It's a pension. It's a true pension. It was a burden that the employer had to hold. They had to save the right amount of money, invest it properly, and then once you got to retirement, they had to continue giving you payment for the rest of your life. So the first burden that was placed upon the shoulder of the employee was determining how much to save and where to invest it in the 401k or the IRA. The second, more consequential burden is being realized in the last 5 to 10 years and will be realized for several years going forward. And that's the burden of taking the accumulated assets, whatever you saved, and turning that into an income that will last a lifetime. In reality, that's what annuities are. So with that little bit of background, let me get into my presentation here real quick. Let me share my screen with you. So annuities, everything you should know but didn't think to ask about annuities. First and foremost, every presentation we give in our industry requires disclosures. And the disclosures, basically in this presentation, disclosures are annuities are a financial tool. They are long-term investments. You need to know what you're getting into. And if you sit down with Brian, with Jeff, with Alex, with Bernie, these individuals will explain specifically what you're getting into, why it is the best financial tool for you. So my advice to you is to make sure you communicate with your financial advisor. Certainly communicate with Brian and Alex and Jeff and Bernie. It's like we said before, 401ks are a great retirement savings tool. But 401ks, when you couple them with the income producing benefits, guaranteed lifetime income benefits that annuities provide, they make a substantial tool that work in concert with each other to help secure your retirement, specifically retirement income. Now, this presentation is just one of many presentations that Acres Financial gives as part of their education series, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I would implore you to make sure you keep your eyes open to your emails and to the newsletters that Acres Financial sends out, and be a part of the other topics that they have educational series on. So annuities, what we want to basically talk on in this, or discuss in this presentation, are the basics of annuities. What is an annuity? We're going to talk about 4 different types of annuities. We're going to talk about the benefits, or the current laud, the people who are expressing excitement about annuities in a diversified portfolio. We're going to talk about some valuable add-ons, or what we call riders to annuities. And then this is all around the question that should be asked is an annuity right for you? So first thing, why an annuity? Well, the number one concern for retirees today is having income that will last a lifetime. An annuity, by definition, is designed to pay an income for life. Annuity in its purest form, by definition, is an income for life. It's designed to provide an income stream for either life or a specific period of time. In addition, it also provides some tax deferral. You don't pay taxes on the dollars till you take them out. Annuities oftentimes are used for specific purposes in financial planning, and one of the ways they're used is to ensure some aspects of investing, like protecting the income or ensuring the income off of a specific asset, specific dollar amount. Protecting legacy, guaranteeing that there is an amount left for a legacy perspective, guaranteeing a return or ensuring a return on a specific dollar amount, an asset. And then lastly, another one is principal, guaranteeing the principal, protecting the principal, ensuring the principal, the fact that the amount of money you give to the insurance company that sits in annuity, and in a lot of annuities, not a lot of them, but a lot of annuities, is protected. It can't be lost because of market or sequence of returns risk. Pretty important. Now, I've been doing this a long time, and there is a lot said about a lot of financial tools, and annuities is one of the ones that gets the worst press and sometimes the best press. But there's a lot of fake news out there, and our perceptions sometimes are based on something other than reality. And I like to use an example of that, something that we see in our daily lives where our perceptions probably are something different than what's there. And let's start with, if you would, think of, in your mind, picture a stop sign. And if you think of a stop sign, you know it's got 8 specific sides. It's an octagon, right? It's an octagon, and the colors of a stop sign are very unique and distinct. Yeah, they are red and white. You can have a stop sign, it's red and white. It can say stop, it can say arre, it can say alto, pare, it can say vergente. It can say a lot of things, but instinctively, anywhere in the world you see an octagon-shaped sign that's red and white, you know what you got to do. You got to stop. There's another sign that we see on a regular basis on our highways, and it's the yield sign. And if I was to ask you to conjure up an image of a yield sign, I would bet you a lot of you would answer the same way 99.9% of the people I've asked over the last 10 years answer, and that is, your image is this: a yellow and black sign, upside down triangle that's yellow and black. That's the image that comes to your mind immediately. Matter of fact, I do these questions in groups, large groups, and immediately, definitively, without question, I get the answers of the colors of a yield sign of yellow and black immediately. The problem is the yield sign is red and white, and it's been red and white since September of 1971, almost 50 years, 49 years this month. It's been red and white, yet most of us, when we think of a yield sign, immediately what comes to mind is yellow and black. See, our perception is something different than what's there. I challenge you to go out and find a yellow and black yield sign on a state, federal, county, municipal street. They don't exist. They're not approved for use on state streets and haven't been for 49 years. I had a guy who sold 3M signs to cities and municipalities. Answered the same way, yellow and black immediately. Definitively, no question. And when I told him they were red and white, he says, you know, you're right. I sell these things. I should know this. Something was clouding his mind. What he thought was there, the colors he thought was on that sign, those weren't the colors. There's probably some things in your financial world when it comes to financial strategies, tools, or concepts where you might have the same type of perceptions. What I try and do when I talk about annuities is ask people to set those perceptions aside. Let's talk about fact and fact only, not somebody else's opinion. When it comes to definitive statements, and there are a lot of definitive statements that are made about annuities, these are some of the definitive statements that are made. And let me tell you that they're not true. At death, the insurance company keeps your money. That definitive statement is false. You have no access to funds. That definitive statement is false. Money's locked up. That definitive statement is false. When you run out of money, it's over. Also false. Income is only for one life. Also false. Money goes to probate. Also false. You can't take a lump sum. Also false. So let's talk about some basics of annuities and try and answer some of these questions with reality. There are two basic types of annuities, an immediate annuity and a deferred annuity. An immediate annuity is an annuity or a contract with the insurance company where they must begin income payments to you, the annuitant, within 12 months. So immediate would obviously give it away that you got to have income within 12 months. That's the important thing about an immediate annuity. Now that income can last for a specific period, a period certain, or it can last for a lifetime. It's intended to generate income for a life. Now, once this annuitization starts, once you start receiving that income, it's generally irreversible. And you can't change it. You can't change beneficiaries. You cannot reverse it typically. What you own is that income, not the asset that's generating the income. The second type is a deferred annuity, and as the name would imply, the annuitization can happen over 12 months from the date you give the money to the insurance company. Now, most deferred annuities never enter the annuitization phase, and deferred annuities are the biggest seller in annuities today. We don't see immediate annuities used that often. Deferred annuities, absolutely. When it comes to deferred annuities, the differentiating factor is how interest is credited or how your money grows. And we're going to talk about three different ways or three different contracts, three different types of annuities that allow your money to grow in three different ways. One is a fixed rate of return. The second is an indexed or equity indexed rate of return. And the last is a variable rate of return. So an immediate annuity pays you can have a period certain. In other words, an annuity where it pays for a specific period of time. That period of time can be 5 years, can be 10 years, can be 15 years. You can also have an immediate annuity that pays for a lifetime or joint lives, husband and wife. You can also have an immediate annuity that has both a period certain and a lifetime income. Now you look at that versus a deferred annuity where there isn't an income that starts immediately. And that deferred annuity, again, we talked about earlier, the differentiating factor is how it grows. What's the dollars inside that contract? What are they invested in? What are the ways that interest is credited to that? So let's talk about an immediate annuity. This is an example. Again, immediate annuity, period certain. You can get an income for 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years. Typically, that is not a strategy that I would suggest today unless somebody is very, very bad with money or somebody has a specific cash flow that they want immediately. Because today with low interest rates, there isn't much of a benefit to doing so. So a specific period certain only immediate annuity may not be the best strategy for you. Unless you're trying to fund a specific thing. You got a loan you're funding it with over a 5 or 10 year period or a life insurance or something. Lifetime income, on the other hand, is a strategy that certainly is beneficial for certain individuals in certain scenarios. Whether it works for you or not, that's a great question for Brian and Alex and Jeff and Bernie. But lifetime income, as the name would imply, pays an income for life, either your life or yours plus somebody else's life, the annuitant plus the joint annuitant's life. And somebody will receive the money for as long as those two are alive. Either one of them will receive the money. Now, the third strategy is to combine those two, and that's to have a lifetime income with a period certain. So you could have a life annuity, let's just say one person, life annuity, and have a 20-year period certain. What that means is somebody is going to get paid for 20 years, at least 20 years. at least either the annuitant, the person receiving it, the person that sets it up, or the annuitant's beneficiary. If the annuitant passes away after 7 years, then the beneficiary will continue to receive those payments for another 13 years. If the annuitant lives for 30 years, then they receive income for the full 30 years. So great strategy, great way to, one, guarantee that you've got an income for a specified period of time, and two, guarantee that you've got a lifetime income. And there's pluses and minuses of doing that. And again, those are great questions for Acres Financial. So we talked about immediate annuity. Now let's talk about deferred annuities. And then, like I said before, the differentiating factor in deferred annuities is how interest is credited to the account, to the cash, to the money you put in there. A fixed annuity credits a specified rate for a specified period of time, either 1 year or multiple years. And that rate is declared in advance of the period. So if I've got a 1 year period, they're going to tell me in advance what rate I'm going to get on that contract for the next year. We see a lot of multi-year guarantee annuities where the guarantee, the fixed rate that's declared, is guaranteed for 3, 5, 7, 10 years. We'll explain how that works in just a minute. But recognize that a fixed annuity, your interest is declared in advance. You know how much it's going to earn for whatever the period that you're using. An indexed or equity indexed annuity, contrary to a fixed annuity, you don't have a declaration of exactly what kind of rate of return you're going to get at the beginning. That declaration, the interest is not determined until after the period to determine where the index did. You're actually getting your growth is based on the performance of an index like the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ or the Russell, or there are a multitude of new indexes that have been created that are dynamically balanced and dynamically managed to avoid volatility. But you don't know what kind of return you're getting until the end of your period, whether it's 1, 2, 5 years. Typically, we see 1 year. The index is based on a stock or bond index, like the S&P, the NASDAQ, the Dow, Russell 2000, and a bunch of others. So important to recognize, you're not invested in the market. You're not invested in the stocks and bonds. You're not invested in equities. Your return is based on the performance of equities without having ownership of them. Does that make sense? Hope so. The last type of annuity is a variable annuity. And in a variable annuity, unlike an indexed annuity or a fixed annuity, your principal is invested in mutual fund-like sub-accounts. And those mutual fund-like sub-accounts can go up and down. In a fixed annuity, indexed annuity, your principal can't go backwards because of the market. In a variable annuity, they certainly can. And so a variable annuity, you have the exposure of the market. So you have all the upside of the market, but you also have all the downside of the market. With that, you've got tax deferral. So 3 different strategies: fixed, indexed, and variable. Let's talk a little bit about the life cycle of a fixed annuity. And again, a reminder, principal and any gains in a fixed annuity are protected. Can't go backwards. In a fixed annuity, you save a bunch of money, you give it to the insurance company, it sits there and grows at whatever rate they've declared to you. Till some point in the future, you take it out. You use it for medical expenses or income or some other thing that you've planned to use it for. It's a good thing to understand that all annuities have tax deferral. You don't pay taxes on the dollars until you take them out. And if there are not an IRA or a 401k, the taxes you pay will be on the gain only. If it's an IRA or 401k, the taxes are on all the dollars coming out. An indexed annuity, same scenario. You save a bunch of money, give it to the insurance company. It accumulates not on a specified rate of return, but based on the performance of the index. Your principal and any gains that have been credited to the account are guaranteed and protected. They can't go backwards because of the market. And at some point in the future, you're going to take that money out and you're going to use it, again, for some expenses, maybe medical expenses as an income rider or something else that you have decided you want to save the money for, maybe leave it as a legacy. And the last cycle is a variable annuity. Unlike the first two, fixed and index, The accumulation, your cash account can go up or down based on the performance of the index or the sub accounts. It can go up and down daily. So you save a bunch of money, give it to the insurance company, you put it into the accumulation account, you choose what you're going to invest in. It grows. It'll go like this, but over time, typically, like the markets, it should grow. And then at some point in the future, just like the others, you're going to take it out. You're going to use it for income, for medical expenses, for legacy, for something else. So that's the basic cycle. Take money, give it to the insurance company. Insurance company credits interest based on what type of annuity it is, and you take it out at some point in the future for income or something else. Here's an example of a fixed interest annuity. This is a 5-year, multi-year guarantee annuity. This one is illustrating a 3% fixed rate of return for the first 5 years. Now, at the end of the first 5 years, the company could either reset for another 5 years at a new interest rate or the current interest rate, or some of them just go to 1-year declared rates after that. It all depends on the carrier. But for those 5 years, you got a guarantee of 3% every year for the 5 years. Typically, at the end of 5 years, you have an option to do something else with the money or continue re-sign up for another index period, fixed interest period. Typically, there's a minimum guaranteed rate that's at the end of your guarantee period that they cannot go below 1%, 1.5%, something like that, or 80.87%, who knows, but there's typically a minimum. These are great tools, and we're seeing a lot of people take advantage of them today, where you're not getting much of a return in a CD. Same scenario where you've got a guaranteed rate of return for 3 to 5 to 7 years. Even if the market goes like this, so the market doesn't do much for the next 5 to 7 years, you know you're getting the interest rate, whatever that's credited. Right now, 5-year MYGAs are around 2.5%. I don't think we see much for a 3% right now. And an indexed interest annuity, like we said, is you don't know what kind of return you're going to get. You have the interest is dependent on the performance of an index, and it happens after the term, at the end of the term, not at the beginning of the term. So typically these terms are 1 year long. So an S&P, we'll look at the S&P 500, it's at 1,000 today. I know it's a lot more than that, but for math's sake, 1,000 today grows to 1,100. That's a 10% growth. They look at it at the end of 12 months. If it's at 1,100, that's a 10% growth. Index annuities have caps. They have participation rates. They have spreads. You want to make sure you understand what those are. This example shows a 5% cap. What that means is you'd never have a loss because the market goes down. So they're not going to give you 100% of the upside. They got to cap the upside. In this scenario, it's 5%. So if the index over 12 months, if that's our measuring stick, over 12 months grew by 3%, your cash, your account, your annuity would be credited 3% in interest. If it went up by 11%, you would be credited 5% because of the cap. If it went down by 7%, you'd be credited with 0. No loss, but no gain either. So very, very important to understand that indexed annuities don't have negative rates. You cannot go backwards. If the market goes down, you won't have a loss, but you certainly won't have any gain either. So it's protecting what you've learned, what you've had before. You also don't have to recover from the index being down for the next period to determine another growth. And that's a thing to discuss with the guys at Acres, with Brian, Jeff, Alex, and Bernie. Contrast those two, where your principal is protected, you have gains that are locked in and protected going forward, with a variable annuity. Variable annuity is a contract, like we said before, where you're actually invested in sub-accounts, mutual fund like sub-accounts. And variable annuities historically have fees. Some are fairly substantial, but in this example, let's just say 2% fees, which is at the low end of what I've seen as an average. But 2%, if the stocks, if your funds, your invested funds, your sub-accounts go up by 10%, then you'll have 8% credited because of the fee. You have 10% minus 2% gives you 8%. If the account goes down by 17%, you actually have a loss of 19%. If they go back up by 5%, you gain 3%. And if they gain 1%, you actually lose 1%. Very important to note that In a variable annuity, your sub-accounts can go up and down, and the fees do detract from whatever growth there is. Your principal typically is not protected, nor are the gains protected. So not a bad product for the right person. You just need to understand what the product does, what kind of a tool it is. So I know I'm going quickly, but I'm trying to get this done within a specific time period. We've talked about immediate annuities. We've talked about deferred annuities. How about, here's some things I want everybody to make sure that you understand. Typically, all deferred annuities, all the deferred annuities, any withdrawals are treated as if gains are coming out and taxed as ordinary income. It's called LIFO, last in, first out. So the last dollars credited to the account are assumed to be the first dollars coming out. So you'll always have your gain coming out first, and any withdrawals that are subject to tax are subject to ordinary income tax. For the tax deferral that annuities give, like IRAs, there is a caveat. There's a price to pay, and the price is you can't touch it without a penalty prior to 59.5. If you access the funds prior to 59.5, you pay ordinary income tax on the gain coming out. If it's an IRA, all of it coming out, plus you got a 10% penalty on top of that. So there are some exceptions that you can use to access the funds prior to 59.5. I think there's 5 or 6 exceptions, but they're very distinct and very unique, and nothing outside of those exceptions will waive that 10% rule except for the CARES Act this year. So if you're looking to make a distribution, take some money out before 59.5, and you've been financially affected by COVID-19, then the CARES Act for this year may be something you want to sit down and talk with Brian or Alex or Jeff or Bernie about. Now, the last thing is most annuities have commissions, fees, or sales charges built into the contract. So you don't necessarily see what those are. Those don't affect the dollar amount that you put into the contract. Let's talk about annuities in a diversified portfolio. Typically, there are 3 strategies for generating income in retirement. One is called the systematic withdrawal strategy. The second is called a time-segmented or bucket strategy. And the last one, which it didn't get on here, is the essential versus discretionary expenses strategy. These 3 strategies all have unique attributes and unique characteristics. They all work very, very well depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But the systematic withdrawal basically is taking a specific percentage of an asset, adjusting it for inflation annually, and in doing so in such a manner that the portfolio lasts for a specific period of time. There are Monte Carlo simulations that are done based on returns that have happened historically and averages and hypotheticals, illustrations you're going to put in there that will tell you what your percentage you can withdraw. There was a time 5% was the number. 5% should last a lifetime. That number's dropped significantly, and there's some debate in our industry as to what that number actually is, and that number is based on what we think the market's going to do going forward. So if we think the market's going to be taken off going forward, you can have a higher withdrawal rate. But if you think the market's not going to go higher, or maybe stay stagnant, or maybe go down, then that withdrawal rate has to be reduced for it to last an average person's lifetime. The second is time segmented or bucket strategy. Imagine, if you will, 3 buckets of money. The first bucket you're going to use relatively soon. The second bucket you're not going to use for a while. And the third bucket you're not going to use for a long time. Those 3 buckets can be invested differently, all 3 of them, because they have different time periods that you're going to be needing them. The near-term bucket, that first 5-year bucket, you're going to have to be very conservative with that because you need that cash. That 6 to 10-year bucket, maybe not need to be quite so conservative. And that 10, 11, 12-year plus bucket, you can be substantially more aggressive with and not quite so conservative if you choose. So another great strategy. And the last one is the essential versus discretionary, where your essential expenses in retirement are covered by guaranteed sources of income. Things like a pension, if you've got one, Social Security, and annuities. Those guaranteed sources of income pay for your roof over your head, transportation, healthcare, food, all the essential things you need in life. Then you've got your discretionary, the things you want to do, the things you'd like to do. That's paid with other sources of income, not necessarily guaranteed sources of income. Now, within a diversified portfolio, there's a lot of press coming out. A lot of pundits are weighing in on utilizing annuities within a diversified portfolio. Individuals like Wade Pfau, who is a research fellow at the American College for Financial Services. He says that the unique benefits of risk pooling in annuities can enhance and truly diversify retirement in the retirement income planning process. He likes that protected lifetime income. He likes that personal pension. You save your 401k. Now let's turn it into a guaranteed income that lasts your lifetime, regardless of how long that lifetime is. Another stalwart in our industry is a gentleman named Roger Ibbotson, who's been around a long time. He suggests that indexed annuities might be a great bond alternative because over the last 20 years, there's been a bond bull market thanks to declining interest rates. Well, interest rates are low, and they're supposed to be low, according to the Fed, for several years. And then now that they're so low, they've only got one way to go, and that's up. And when they do go up, it affects the value of bonds. He's saying these indexed annuities would be a great alternative, at least if nothing else, work in concert with a bond portfolio. So again, another thing to talk to Brian and Alex and Jeff and Bernie about. Let's talk a little bit about these valuable add-ons or riders. And we're going to talk about an income rider that is typically attached to either an indexed annuity or a variable annuity. And an income rider is a way of ensuring longevity risk. It guarantees an income for a lifetime that you cannot outlive. Yet, if you pass away too soon, then there is something left. There's a benefit left for heirs. And these riders can be either a withdrawal benefit or what's called an annuitization benefit. And it's nothing more than a way of calculating a future stream of income. In a deferred annuity, indexed annuity, variable annuity, with an income rider, you typically, if you can imagine, two separate buckets of money. One bucket of money is the money you give the insurance company and the growth it's accumulating based on the index or the sub-accounts or whatever growth you're using, whatever period product you're using. The separate bucket is a virtual bucket of money. It's a bucket of money that is not cash. It's got one job and one job only. And its job is to determine upon what dollar amount you can take a specific contractually obligated withdrawal amount, percentage, for the rest of your life and have it last a lifetime. That's all it is. It's just a dollar amount. Here's an example of a deferred annuity with an income rider during the accumulation phase. The bucket on your left is the cash. It's what your money's actually earning. The bucket on the right is that virtual bucket, that make-believe bucket. It's not real income. It's just got one job and one job only, and it's to determine a dollar amount upon which you can take a withdrawal. On the left side, your cash, let's say it's growing at 2.5% per year. Over 10 years, if you got a 2.5% average rate of return, you'd have $128,000 on a $100,000 principal. In the income rider, it's guaranteeing that the income, the dollar amount that the income is going to be based on is going to grow at 7% per year. Not unlike, it could be like Social Security, waiting 4 years, getting 8% growth in the income. This is all about income, not cash. So it's going to grow in this example at 7% per year. So the $100,000 you start with grows to $196,000. Now here's the question. If you were taking a specific percentage per year from the account, which dollar amount would you prefer to have that percentage based on? Example, 4%. Would you rather have 4% of $128,000 last a lifetime? Or would you rather have 4% of $196,000 last a lifetime? Well, most people would rather have the 4% of $196,000. Now, I'm making this simplistic. There are a lot of moving parts to all annuities, specifically indexed and variable annuities. But that's why you need to sit down with Brian and Jeff and Alex and Bernie, the people at Acres Financial, to determine whether an annuity is right for you. So the question is it right for you? Maybe, maybe not. They don't know until they sit and they visit with you. No financial advisor can say upon first meeting you that annuity is what you need. They need to do a little bit of background and find out more about you and if it actually makes sense. And in considering, there's a couple of questions you should be asking yourself. One, do you want to position yourself to grow during a quick market recovery while avoiding the harm if this pandemic economic effects continue? We've seen the market come back. It's great. But it could be that this could be a long-lasting effect, and we're just seeing a blip. We don't know. You want to position yourself to grow and then avoid that? Annuity might be right for you. Do you want to lock in profits during a volatile market using a guaranteed accumulation annuity? If the market's going to go like this, do you want to lock in your gains, get a guarantee of 3%, 2.5%, whatever the number is, whatever's available? Maybe. Do you want to learn about a strategy that loves a bull market, avoids losses in a bear market, and thrives during volatility? If that's the case, talk to the people at Acres Financial. Talk to Brian or Jeff or Bernie or Alex. And lastly, do you want to end financial stress by optimizing your retirement, specifically your retirement income? These are 4 great questions to ask yourself, and ask all the questions you need of Acres Financial. Brian and Jeff, again, Brian, Jeff, Alex, and Bernie, they know these annuities inside and backwards. Most importantly, they know how they fit together within a well-diversified portfolio, utilizing all the financial tools available. The beauty of Acres Financial is they do have a universe of financial tools, products, strategies available to help you. I hope this has been helpful for you. Hope you got a little bit better of a picture of annuities. And again, I want to thank you for your time. And Brian, thanks for letting me be a part of it. Thank you.